Everybody on the left has heard it, wherever they get their talking points. Defend Nation of Islam leader Louis Farrakhan at all costs. In late February, Farrakhan railed against Jewish people at an event. He said they created apartheid and were causing black men to become gay through the use of marijuana. Women's March national co-chair Tamika Mallory will not denounce him. Meanwhile, The Atlantic magazine, which all the smart people read, has published a piece defending him, in effect, citing the Nation of Islam's role in poor communities. Marjorie Clifton is a consultant and a self-described feminist, and she joins us tonight. Marjorie, it's great to see you.
Good to see you. How are you?
So I knew you were a feminist. I had no idea that Louis Farrakhan was sympathetic to feminism. I went to the Million Man March in '95. I think, actually, to be honest, I think there are worse people in America than Louis Farrakhan. But he's a hater, and he's certainly not a feminist, and he's an open bigot. So, like, why would the Women's March, which is about women and progressive values, be tied to him?
Well, it actually wasn't. They just came out in a public statement and denounced his statements that were anti-Semitic. But what's interesting about the Women's March, it is in a movement that is embracing a lot of different kinds of women. So you've got women coming from the African-American community, the Jewish community, the white community, the Muslim community, and it's complicated. And one of the amazing things that I'm seeing in this movement is a willingness to acknowledge that sometimes we step in it because we are in some ways not aware of how even just participation in an event, like we saw with Tamika Mallory, who attended an event where he was speaking, offended others. And what's great about her is she has come forward and apologized to those around her for the ways that she created. And she has very publicly come out and said, of course I do not defend those statements. And of course I denounce
but that's actually, but if I can, wow, I've never seen a gloss like that. It's in fact, I'm blinded by the sheen from the gloss that you just put on that. She didn't actually say that. She continued to defend him. She initially refused until the media noise got so loud from the right that she couldn't ignore it. She defended him and said, I'm not disavowing him. And it's, so are you suggesting that she didn't know of his views? She doesn't have Google or Wikipedia where she is?
What I think she didn't realize was that in one thing he said, and actually, as you said it in the last segment, one person, an entire movement shouldn't be discredited for the actions of someone associated in any removed way, and that's what we're talking about here.
Wait a second. No, hold on. But hold on. I can't let you go on that because again, and I just want to be clear. I think there are worse people than Louis Farrakhan. I think Farrakhan's repugnant. But I think they probably do some decent things in neighborhoods. I mean, I try not to paint in stark contrast. But by the standards that you're espousing and that Tamika Mallory is espousing, where if you've ever met anybody with whom the Atlantic magazine disagrees, or if you've ever said anything that doesn't kind of conform to our current sensibilities, you're out, man. You're fired from your job. There's no redemption. There's no apology that will ever cleanse your sins. Those are the standards that you are pushing. So why do you apply different standards to yourself?
Actually, I'm not. And what I'm actually espousing is that in any movement, and this is true, by the way, of any administration, anyone else, there should be the opportunity to repair where something has done wrong. And I think that's true in terms of how the Me Too movement's handled, all of these others, is that you cannot be guilty as accused on one shot. It doesn't mean that every person is perfect. It doesn't mean that we can't step in it and correct and repair. And that's what she is doing, by the way. And so this movement is acknowledging we're coming at this from a lot of different angles. And,
okay,
it's interesting.
So what I guess what you're saying is there are probably good people on both sides of it. Is that what you're saying? Kind of the Charlottesville line on this? Okay, so
that's different.
It's totally different. Oh, I'm sorry. It's because it's not your side, so it's totally different. But there are good people on both sides. That is kind of what you're saying. I mean, you agreed. No?
What I'm saying is that this is a movement that's very different. It's not a single platform. It's encompassing all that is about inclusion. That means anyone with disabilities. It means
I get it. But these are the leaders. But hold on. These are not some random people. These are the leaders of the movement, including Linda Sarsour. So let's just re-engineer this, reverse engineer it if we could. What about Farrakhan do you think they found appealing? They went out of their way to tie themselves to him and to defend him. Why, I wonder?
No, actually, they didn't, and they did not. They don't have him representing it. What they denounced was his statements, but he was involved.
What did they like? I mean, why do you suppose she went to one of his? I mean, look, everybody over the age of 3 who can read English knows his views because they're the most famous thing about him. They're openly racist. So why would she go to one of his events? Was she the only person who didn't know? I'm honestly confused.
See, he was very involved in the civil rights movement, and it's interesting because I'm not an African-American woman.
I remember him calling for racial separatism in alliance with the KKK, actually. So he wasn't involved in the civil rights movement.
He was an organizer. He was an organizer in the Million Man March that you participated in.
Yeah, that was 1995, 30 years later.
Let me offer another way of looking at it, okay? I'm not an African-American woman, and it's interesting because I've talked to others in the African-American community that said when O.J., you know, was basically on trial, it was a very hard thing to get their heads around that he could, in a sense, not betray the movement, but do something wrong because he was an idol in that community. And I think there are people that do good things, but they also, you know, can do bad things, but it doesn't make the whole movement discredited.
I agree with you.
Right.
Let me just say, let me stop right now and just say, I totally agree, and we're all flawed, and good people do bad things, and by the way, bad people do good things, because that's the nature of life. And so I hope you will add your voice to the tiny chorus of people reminding everyone else of that the next time someone gets fired from his job because he had lunch with someone that he doesn't agree with. Like, can you please help convince people that that's true? Okay, good.
That is if I had one mission in life, it would be get people together and talk about it, give people an opportunity to repair, restore cultures of organizations when bad things happen. For example, the entire Catholic faith is not discredited by the fact that there were priests who were pedophiles.
Yeah,
you know, Billy Graham was not a bad person because he associated with Nixon at one point in time. That doesn't discredit his life's work.
Well, good.
So we can't do things that way.
I found the one, like, reasonable liberal tonight. Thank you, Marjorie, because I agree with all of that, and I appreciate your saying it.
And any woman who has been the recipient of unwanted sexual advances, a married woman, by the way, is who he's describing, is cringing, is physically reacting to what they heard. And I'm horrified. I'm saddened, and I cannot even believe at this point that we are even considering putting him in office knowing what we know. To your point, Bill Clinton they tried to impeach him.
They did
for his actions. It is a stain. It is a stain. But he is not who we're trying to elect as president. We're trying to elect the first woman president. It's not right. None of it is. But it is also not right to think that we would elect someone who we knowingly, going in, talks about sexually assaulting women, talks about women the way he does. And I'm sorry. It's not okay.
It's okay. It's okay. Take a moment. When you both consider the events over the next 36 hours, you're going to have a debate on Sunday night. And
that's right.
I mean, so Matt, where do you think in 48 hours we are in this campaign then?
Well, first I'd like just to say to Marjorie, there's a lot of emotion, and I just want to connect to the fact that I think these statements are repugnant. And I think the fact is this: when you're a candidate at a moment like this, when you're going through a crisis, it's very rare that you have a big moment immediately on top of it. And here we're going to be Sunday night at the second debate. And it's all in Donald Trump's hands. He's either going to continue to own the fact that what he said was wrong and apologize as he did last night, which I thought was a really good first step, and connect to voters. In the end, in a democracy, the voters are going to decide whether or not they want him in this big job.
To both of you, thanks. Matt, Marjorie?
Thank you.
It's going to be okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What's going on?
One of the big winners in this brave new political environment is Linda Sarsour. She's a left-wing activist. She's now the face of Muslim identity politics in America. Of course, the Democratic Party loves her. But what does she actually believe? Assess it for yourself.
I will respect the presidency, but I will not respect this president. Our number one and top priority is to protect and defend our communities. It is not to assimilate and to please any other people in authority. I hope that when we stand up to those who oppress our communities, that Allah accepts from us that as a form of jihad, that we are struggling against tyrants and rulers, not only abroad in the Middle East or in the other side of the world, but here in these United States of America, where you have fascists and white supremacists and Islamophobes reigning in the White House.
Arguing against assimilation. Why can't Democrats find a Muslim mascot who is not a total extremist? They probably could if they tried. Eat Street's Joe Simonson joins us tonight for more on this Linda Sarsour person. Joe, thanks a lot for coming on. Who is she exactly, and is it fair to call her an extremist?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Linda Sarsour is
makes Muslims in the Middle East look moderate. She is an extremist in the fact that she believes in Sharia law. She recently used the word jihad to explain her personal inner war with the president. She is absolutely an extremist. She has taken a leadership position in the so-called leftist resistance to President Trump. And she's certainly outside the mainstream of, I think, American ideals, and I would even say the average American Muslim's ideals.
Well, if she's for Sharia law, for sure, but that seems like it would set her at odds with mainstream feminism, which is, at least purports to be about empowering women. Sharia law is, you know, a non-Western code that really circumscribes their choices. So, like, how does that work? How are feminists for Sharia law?
Absolutely. I mean, leftist feminists definitely have a difficult balancing act to play here. I think they really like having a token minority, and when she starts speaking about what Sharia law is, they kind of just turn off their ears, but then they can say, well, we have this woman, this Palestinian activist, and it's so great, and oh, well, just don't listen to what it actually means to live in a country that has Sharia law.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like most people, most feminists would be adamantly against
terrifying.
that. Is it fair to say that she has ties to mainstream Democratic politicians, elected Democrats?
Absolutely. I mean, not a single mainstream Democratic politician has certainly denounced her. She was one of the people at the front of the so-called Women's March after Trump was inaugurated. She's taken stage with several different Democratic politicians, and she's certainly been embraced by mainstream Democrats. This is not a fringe figure, even though her beliefs are certainly fringe.
Huh. Where is she on Israel?
Not a fan. She is a Palestinian absolutist. I would be surprised if she even believes Israel has a right to exist, Tucker.
So does nobody say anything about this in the Democratic Party? I mean, it used to be, and by used to be, I mean like 18 months ago, someone like this would get some pushback in the Democratic Party. Does she?
Right, absolutely. I mean, I think everyone that would criticize someone like Luna Sarsour has been driven outside of the Democratic Party. I mean, I think this is reflected in the fact that Democrats have a really hard time losing elections. Now, what I don't understand, and it's what you mentioned earlier, is that there are millions of Muslim Americans in this country that are good people, Tucker, people who assimilated, people who go to school, have normal jobs, who don't preach Sharia law. And I don't understand why Democrats don't talk to one of these people to kind of talk about Islam.
You'd think.
You
mean,
would.
Yeah, they've gotten extreme. Joe, thanks a lot for that. Thanks for the details.
Tucker.
Appreciate it.